Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. We've been wondering when the Congress is going to act, specifically the House, on passing the budget request for the additional $3 billion. Well, today's the day. Before we jump into it, I wanted to just throw a special shout out to Shannon M. Shannon M., thank you so much for the super comment chat thing. I really appreciate that in the comments. Thank you so much for your support. I really do appreciate it, Shannon M. Thank you. All right, so let's jump into it. Today, Tuesday, is the day that the House is set to consider legislation to fill that nearly $3 billion shortfall. Now, this needs to happen in order for the VA to continue on paying out benefits such as education, compensation, and so forth. Now, let's jump into it here. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I truly appreciate it. Every single person that hits the thumbs up and every single person that lets this video run helps to put this into the hands of others. Thank you so much. If you want to support the channel in other ways, consider being a member. Thank you so much to all you members, and let's jump into it. All right. So the headline is, Emergency Veterans Bill appears to be on a fast track. Remember, it's got to go through the House, it's got to go through the Senate, it's got to get signed. All this needs to happen by the 20th. So there's a subheadline, higher than expected demand for benefits after toxic exposure law enacted drove funding shortfall. I'm going to throw in myself and budgeting forecast snafus. All right, so let's jump back into this. I found this on, by the way, rollcall.com regarding this, and they did a great job. So let's jump into it. The House on Tuesday, today, is set to consider legislation that would fill a nearly $3 billion gap in veterans benefits ahead of the September 20th deadline, which is, today's the 17th, so not very far away. Representative Mike Garcia, Republican California, introduced the supplemental appropriations bill last week with top GOP leaders on the Appropriations Committee and House Veterans Affairs Committee. Mike Bost, chairman of that committee, also involved. It will be considered under suspension of the rules and expedited procedure requiring a 2/3 majority of lawmakers present and voting to pass. The Department of Veterans Affairs said up to 7 million veterans and their beneficiaries were at risk of missing their October 1st benefits if Congress didn't act, by the 20th of September. This is from the Department of Veterans Affairs. So the Department of Veterans Affairs said up to 7 million veterans and their beneficiaries were at risk of missing their October 1st benefits if Congress did not act. A 2022 law that expanded eligibility for veterans exposed to toxins overseas led to an influx of demand and the funding gap, the VA has said. Again, I'm just going to throw out there that they put in their budget request, and then a couple months after their budget request was pushed through and other things happened budgetarily for the government, then the VA comes back and says, oh, by the way, we're actually short $15 billion. Whatever. All right, so moving on. The Senate is expected to try to pass the bill under unanimous consent later in the week to ensure that veterans receive their benefits payments as scheduled. So basically, if the House can get it together and pass it, it'll go to the Senate. Senate plans to expedite the process by a unanimous consent later this week, which, I mean, look, what is, it's the 20th is Friday. So later this week, hopefully Thursday, right? And Wednesday or Thursday, and then the president signs it. So moving on, the Senate's version of the bill introduced by Senator Sherrod Brown included different oversight language, but nonetheless oversight language because the VA's snafu. So they're not just going to go, here's your money. They're going to go, here's your money, but we're also going to put in some oversight stipulations in there. So Senate leaders, however, are expected to bring up the House's version, sources familiar with the situation said. Senate leaders tried to get a unanimous consent for their chamber's bill in late July, by the way, before they all left, everybody left for go back to their districts and all of that, their summer kind of break. They're all back in D.C. now. So, but moving on. They tried to do the unanimous consent for their chamber's bill in late July, but were blocked by some who wanted a hearing on the topic to be scheduled. The Senate Veterans Affairs Committee has a September 18th oversight hearing on the shortfall. So that's tomorrow, Wednesday. So while the VA has been warning lawmakers of higher than expected demand for services after enactment of the 2022 benefit expansion, it was only in July that the agency officially put a number on the funding shortfall. Garcia's bill would require the Veterans Affairs Secretary to submit a report within 30 days to the Appropriations and Veterans Affairs Committees on corrections the department is making to improve budget forecasting. The VA Secretary would also be mandated to submit a report on the status of funds made available for compensation, pension, and benefits for current and next 2 fiscal years every 90 days until the end of fiscal 2026. How would you like to look? The VA Secretary is leaving, the new one's coming in. How would you like to come into something that's just been falling apart? And the only thing you can say is we've served more. So that I don't think there's very many people just chomping at the bit for that job. The VA is facing an additional $12 billion gap in its fiscal 2025 healthcare accounts, a topic which has emerged as a sticking point in the debate over the stopgap spending measure that is needed by October 1st to avert a partial government shutdown. So, the fun just continues to go on. I am not sure exactly what time this vote is to take place, but I will tell you, congressional members get texts on their phone from their staffers. So imagine if the congressional member in your district had 1,000 phone calls or 1,000 emails or 1,000 people walking through their door saying, hey, look, you need to get this thing passed so the Senate can move forward, so the president can sign it, so we don't have a delay in benefits. Make sure that you're taking care of our veterans. So imagine if that happened. The staffer is going to notify the congressional member of this. And they'll be sitting there looking at their phone going, oh, maybe I shouldn't stonewall this, or maybe I shouldn't do this or that. Maybe I should actually just jump on this and make it happen. If you think this is what needs to happen. If you don't think this is what needs to happen, then obviously you don't need to do anything. But if you feel as though this is important and it needs to happen, the money and a little bit of oversight, because look, let's face it, there has been calamity after calamity after calamity with the VA over the last 3 years or so. It's been big issue after big issue. So this is just another icing on the cake situation. So with that, reach out to your congressional member's office, shoot them an email, give them a phone call, whatever it is. The sooner the better. And if you have somebody who's on the fence, this might kick them over the edge if their office is receiving a lot of loud mouths, right? With that, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.